shine when the light grows dim. Sing 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it, like we do it. Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Fear of a Flat Planet. My name is Henry Jackson, and joining us today, I believe from sunny California, is Mr. Mark McMorris. Mark, how are we?
Lovely. Thank you, Henry. And you are correct. I am in sunny California, but the temps aren't very typical California. It's definitely shifting seasons here. It's getting colder, and it's nice to see. There's snow in the mountains here.
Yeah, well, so is Encinitas your base, sort of more full-time base when you're not on the road these days, or?
Yeah, pretty much. I would definitely say that. Try and come back here in between trips and events and things like that, just because it's an easier place to base out of and fly out of than Saskatchewan, as you could imagine.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And it's, I mean, obviously not renowned necessarily for its mountain environment down there in SoCal, although you've got obviously Bear and Mammoth around.
Yeah.
Do you find it's a nice sort of disconnect after like a hectic season to change the scenery a little bit? Is that what a bit of the thinking behind that?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the main reason why I ended up here. One, because I love it down here and I love skateboarding and surfing. And then two, because I spend all of my time traveling to cold destinations and chasing the winter in the mountains. And when you come back here, you get such a nice reset and just sort of change of scenery and get really excited and get that itch to go back to the mountains. And I think that keeps it really fresh for me.
Yeah, speaking of itches to get on the mountain, I had a chat with Seb earlier on in this series, and he was saying he'd been off his snowboard for 7 months, which is like the longest. I mean, you can imagine someone who can't sit still like Seb without being able to strap in. How long since you
injury either?
Yeah, true. Without like just it. I mean, you just posted. Have you been in the mountains in the last few days, last weeks or so?
Yeah, I went to Colorado to shoot a Mine 77 catalog for their deep winter launch. And we went to a really neat Ma and Pa resort in the south of Colorado, right on the border of New Mexico, called Wolf Creek. And it's a really, really amazing resort with great terrain. And I just assumed it would be a bunch of old 2-person chairs, but they had like high-speed quads, and it was really legit and quite refreshing. It was quiet up there and quite a solid base for that time of year. I was very impressed.
Now, you've been quite evasive on your Instagram. What's that board you're riding? Because it's definitely a departure from what we normally see you on. I saw a little swallowtail on there or something. Yeah,
so skeleton key shape, but it's the JBC, Jake Burton Carpenter Cruise 158 coming to you this January for the Mine 77 Deep Winter launch. And it's a great board. I had a ton of fun riding it. I don't really ride those sort of shapes on the resort very often, or on groomers. It just doesn't really happen. I usually ride those neat shapes when I get into the backcountry, but it was really fun to ride it on the resort, and super responsive. And yeah, if there's no park features, I think I would rather be riding a board like that. It made it quite a bit more fun.
Yeah, just a little bit different feel and different flow.
Different response. And that board was super responsive, a narrower board than I would normally ride, and really fun.
We say narrower than normal. So what is your normal sort of setup? What do you rock sort of for your getting business done?
My everyday board is a 157 process camber. And we've pretty much implemented everything I've tweaked over the years to the stock process. The only thing different is my nose and tail are just round, symmetrical, opposed to kind of like the squared up nose. And I think that's just personal preference for me. And then I ride medium Malavitas with small straps.
Okay.
So I can crank them super tight. And then I ride a size 11 SLX.
All right. Are you, so you say, so you switch out the straps on the bindings. Are you someone, do you kind of obsess over the setup? Is it something for you that like you get on something and you're like, no, this is not right. I need to tweak this, or because I know some guys are like, yeah, just give me anything, I'll send it.
Yeah. I used to be like that. I'm a little bit more particular now just due to all my injuries I've had and stuff. Like I have cant in my bindings, like on the base plate. So like I kind of stand like this, and that seems to be a lot easier on my knees and hips, which it was kind of new last year. And now I can't ride without it. I love it so much. And yeah, we're trying to implement that in more of like the stock products and just trying new things so that we can continually evolve.
So do you have quite a lot of input then? And so you keep mentioning like the kind of stock products, because obviously there isn't necessarily a Mark McMorris Pro model out there or anything. And so you say you're on the process. Do you have like full input into those stock models? Is there a bunch of you? Is it just you? Like how does it go around with the round tables? I know that they do it, but
yeah, we talk product quite a bit with the riders at Burton, and that was a huge thing with Jake. Was just like, we're on the product the most, we have to be making the calls, and then there's no one riding the process as much as I am, so it's kind of like my board. So we'll try new things and then we'll implement it to the stock board if it works. Like I used to put carbon fiber under the feet, like just to make it a little more snappy and stiff. And then now that's just in the everyday board, and you see that happen. And we kind of try things as the riders, and they really do come to life at Burton, which is really cool. And everyone sort of has their board and they're kind of in charge of it. And then we all come together for those fun shapes and try and make the best product we can. And yeah, it's cool at Burton. We talk product a lot. There's been a lot of zooming going on this lockdown, and yeah, everything from bags to boots to bindings to socks to helmets. Like we really talk it all, which is really cool. And glad to be a part of that family and that sort of just like initiative in the sense of us taking charge.
Awesome. And speaking of the Burton family, of course, the news at the moment, other than the Mine 77 drop-in, is of course One World is now out.
Yes.
I've not seen it yet, and actually after this, we were speaking off air about a good friend of ours, Jonathan Weaver. I'm actually popping round to his house to have a viewing. So we have
nice.
Yeah, we have our own premiere tonight. So I've not seen it yet, so I can't comment on the movie, but and I don't want to, ruin it for myself, especially. But so you obviously part of the movie. As you know, it's one of these things in snowboarding that I think from the outside perspective, like someone who isn't integrally involved in snowboarding, it can be quite a difficult thing to explain, like this whole athlete side where you're training for X Games, Olympics, World Cups, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But also on the other side, you've got this whole creative process with filming a video part. Do you find it hard to separate the sort of mindsets between them? Does it sometimes get too much, or have you been focusing on one or the other? Or
most years I will have a little bit of balance between the two, and that seems to as the years go by make me more excited to compete if I have some other stuff going on. Too much of anything is no good. When I'm filming and competing, I feel like if I have a good balance, I'm doing my best and I'm having the most fun I can have snowboarding. So it's really important to me to every year have some sort of film project to be working on and not just focusing on contests, even though that's a really big part of what I do. But I think, it's just really important to me to have diversity in my season and try and ride all different aspects of snowboarding. If it's street, backcountry, contest, park, whatever it may be. This year was really cool to get to do that. And we haven't made a film as a team in 8 years since the movie.
It's been 8 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Crazy. Yeah, time flies. So like when I first got on Burton, we didn't make a movie that year, and then we made Standing Sideways in 2012 and then 13 in 2013. And then we've been on a hiatus since then. So it was really exciting, and kind of a lot riding on it, trying to make the best film possible. And of course, Jake greenlit it, and then he passed. So that was a little bit tough. And it was just a tough season all around because of COVID and getting cut short and things like that. But I think we did a hella good job nonetheless. And I think people are going to be really stoked on the film, and I'm proud of what we made. So
there's a great movie that came out of it. Was obviously a horrible situation, was of course your Unbroken movie.
Yeah.
Was which sort of stemmed from this desire to get a video part film, because you were injured filming in the backcountry.
Yeah.
And went through that whole process of like, I mean, for anyone who hasn't seen it, make sure you go and check out Unbroken. It's incredible, story of almost tragedy to a tribute to Mark's resilience. But is there any point, after an injury like that, where you did have to question your goals? Like, because obviously you came back and absolutely smashed it for the Olympics, but was there any part of that you're like, maybe the filming shouldn't be part of it? Or did it make you more determined in a way to sort of show that it can still be done?
Yeah, I think definitely made me question what I was up to a little bit. Like, oh, I don't know if that was worth it, but it can happen crossing the street, like I'm a snowboarder, I have to snowboard. And I'll never forget, Jake came to Vancouver to visit me right after it happened. And he said that Shaun told him, stay in the park. And I'll never forget, I basically in my broken state started punching Jake, and Jake loved that. Because he was like, and I was like, no, fuck that. I'm a snowboarder. I want to do all sides of snowboarding. It's not just park snowboarding and competing. And that actually, Jake would tell that story quite often. And yeah, I just think that's just the way it goes, I had already had my spot on the Olympic team, and I wanted to go get some clips in the backcountry because I'm an all-around snowboarder and I take pride in that. So I don't think it really crossed my mind in a serious note that I was going to stay away from the backcountry on certain years. That's just a part of me, and I'm a snowboarder, and I'll always be a snowboarder. So you'll catch me back there.
That's a funny little story about Shaun. And speaking of Shaun, of course, you recently surpassed his record for X Games medals. You're now the most successful medalist in X Games history on a snowboard. Do you ever get a little worry in your back of the head that Shaun might show up and be like, I want that record back. I think I'm going to end.
I'm sure. He is showing no signs of slowing down. He's on it.
When I talked to Seb, he talked a little bit about how, he had quite an established career when the kind of team sort of started, I guess, gathering momentum. Mm-hmm. He sort of went through a process of well, I'm good. Like, who are these guys? Do I need this? Do I need to be part?
Yeah.
And then sort of going through that to now kind of saying like it's his support group. It's almost like his family on the road. Like everything that it brings to the table has like enriched his snowboard life. Whereas in the beginning, he was kind of like, didn't really know what this was. Did you find that? Did you go through a similar process when it came around? Was it still in its infancy when you got on the team, or was it more a sort of a part of what was already going on when you got involved?
I was sort of a little bit in the same boat as Seb, because I was already on Burton, Red Bull, Oakley. I was already in the X Games. I was already traveling around the world. And then they announced it's going to go to the Olympics. And then there's a few people just hanging around now from Canada Snowboard. But luckily, those people were Chris Witwicky, amazing people that love snowboarding and are legit people in snowboarding, great photographers, not stepping on our toes, telling us how to do things, just there to help. And once you realize, oh, that's all they're there to do, welcome in, and Canada Snowboard is a really awesome organization, and they want to be authentic and legit in snowboarding because they respect the sport, and they've done a really good job opposed to some nations that I won't name, they're really authentic. And I really appreciate the way they approach, existing careers and building kids' careers, you know? So yeah, they had a lot of respect for us because they weren't going to tell us what to do, because in a sense, like, they're there because we kind of like brought snowboarding or slopestyle snowboarding to the Olympics, and now there's a program for it, and now they're working there, and we get to work together and try and like build that first Olympic team. And luckily Seb and I got to go alongside Max and Charles Reed in 2014, and that was really exciting times. And I think they've just done a really good job in the sense of like not stepping on our toes and kind of learning from what we had already and then building from there, and sort of harvesting the younger athletes' careers, and just giving them the opportunities to reach their full potential. It's been really amazing to work with Canada Snowboard, and I'm impressed with the people they have hired to do the roles, and how they go about it.
Pretty crazy as well now when you see what's actually available, like the resources, you know, throughout a lot of teams, and especially I see it with the Canada team, like, you know, wind the clock back even pre-Olympics at times, you know, riders were, you know, there wasn't much training. There wasn't any physio, more or less. There was no mental coaches. There was no sports psychology involved. And now, you know, certainly on that side of the sport, because as we talked earlier, is different size to it. On that side of the sport, there's really the right resources available. Do you dip into that a lot? Have you got your own program? Do you do any like mental coaching or much like specific training regimes or anything like this?
You know, like I'd say I take advantage of some things. Like heavily, I take advantage of the physio. Jeremy Shepard, who is an amazing sort of sports scientist in the sense of like body mechanics and rehabilitation and things like that. I don't necessarily take too much advantage of like the sports psychology, just because like, I don't know, my headspace and competing has worked for me, and if it ain't fixed, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it, is sort of my MO with that. And I kind of just stay in my bubble, talk to Burwell, talk to my boys, stay around my friends, and that seems to allow me to succeed at the right events and at the right times. But like, yeah, it's crazy. If you really need it, the resources are there of like a professional sports team. You know, you can talk to a sports psych, you can see a nutritionist, you can do all this stuff, which is amazing for snowboarding to reach that level. And it's awesome to have those resources. So feeling super lucky to be a part of that program and get to access all those neat things. Yeah.
And are the sights sort of set on Beijing? Is that the focus now? Is that kind of, is your sort of rudder already pointing towards that direction?
Yeah, I would say that's a bit of my North Star, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. So coming into this season here, we're just like a month away from, well, yeah, I guess next month at this time we'll be at the first World Cup in Copper, and that is the first time we can start building towards our spot. So the Canadian team will give 2 spots away by this spring, and I've been lucky at the last 2 Olympics to be in the top 2, so you get that spot almost a year in advance, which is super clutch, and it allows you to sort of not have to stress on the year of, and more just worry about perfecting your craft and getting as dialed in as you can, and not worrying about making finals and all these results and things like that. So yeah, it's on, and I would really like to finish this season in the top 2 and be able to lock in my spot. And yeah, I don't know, I'm going to do everything in my power to be at the 2022 Olympics, and I'd like to change the shade of the medal and come home with 2 this time. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of water to go under the bridge before then. And snowboarding is a ever so progressive sport. So we'll see what happens. But I feel like I'm riding at the top of my game, and I'm more experienced than I've ever been. So I think I have a good shot to be there and to do well.
Yeah, wow, very good. And you've obviously been on the team for a while. There's something through these interviews that I have noticed now is the team is more or less made up from guys and girls who are not really from Canada's like biggest mountain ranges.
Yeah.
Like obviously you're from Saskatchewan, like a bunch of the guys and girls from Ontario. Spencer's from BC, but from a tiny little island with like
not like a 5-star resort or anything. But I would definitely say I'm the most vertically challenged, but pretty much everybody from the team comes from a vertically challenged place.
Like, what do you think that's about? Like, do you think because like a lot of the Canadian scene are spoiled with the kind of backcountry resources or like the mountains, like they're not quite as hungry for the sort of breakout mode that you guys have? Or
well, I think maybe that is a reason. But when you look around the snowboard industry and all the best people like Norway, Finland, those places aren't very great for snowboarding either, and when you grow up in that environment and you like something, you're just a bit more passionate for it. And then when you get to go to one of those stellar resorts, you're just like that much more hungry, opposed to just growing up there and the jadedness of it. And I think people that come from places that aren't the best want things more and go for it a little bit harder. And that's my take on it. And I've been asked that question a few times over my career, and that's truly what it is for me. Like, I remember getting to go to great resorts, and when you would go to these events and things like that, and it was just like the holy grail. And then you would go back home and you just couldn't wait to go back to like a real mountain again. And the passion was there and the drive was definitely there.
so where was did you have a local zone that you could shred growing up? Where was the closest to you?
Yeah. So outside of Regina, where we had a family cabin, it's like flat farmland, and then it dips into this ravine, and there's a lake, and the ski resort's on that little drop, and it's 290 feet vertical. And dude, I don't know, like you don't need much to learn the fundamentals, and to get really good at the fundamentals, you don't need much. So we would be out there every weekend. And then luckily when I was 13, I think, or 12 maybe, Team Saskatchewan started. So there was sort of like the chaperone that would take us 6 hours west to like Banff, Calgary Olympic Park, places like that, which were so good compared to where we grew up. And we would go there every second weekend and get the opportunity to ride quite a bit. So without that, I think I would have been hooped. So thank you to Team Saskatchewan and Russell Davies for driving my ass to the mountains all the time. And then, people started to recognize, and then I got to travel a bit more and more and more, and the rest was history.
Yeah, so you did come up through the kind of the local provincial teams, because it's something that I've heard a bunch about. And anyone who's listening, you can go on the Canada Snowboard Team.ca and donate. $20 or more, you get a tax-free receipt, and you can actually choose which zone it goes to the PTSA. So you can donate, of course, to the major teams, but you can also choose if you want it to go to the Saskatchewan team. If you've got any, what are people from Saskatchewan called? Actually, forgive my ignorance.
Saskatchewanites.
So if you are a Saskatchewanite and you want to donate directly to that team, so we can get some more Mark McMorris coming up, you can do that. And so just one last one, Mark. So your whole career, it's obviously been one of the most successful ones. If you had to pick one contest, which really, like, it doesn't even have to be about winning or a position. I mean, I talked to Spencer about it, and she remembers a contest where she got completely in the flow state, or Mikey was about a comp that he just was having a shocker and then managed to sort of pull it through. Like, if there was one that you could pick out, what would it be?
Probably the slope style in X Games 2019. There was 3 runs, blew it on the first 2, and I was last to drop on the 3rd run. And I think I went from like 8th to 1st and did still to this day, for me, the best run I've ever done in a slopestyle contest. And just like the joy that brought me was incredible. And having all my friends and family around, like that feeling is sort of unexplainable.
And was it, and for you, was it more about the run than actually, like, you know, had that, like, for you, say that's the best run you've ever done? Did you just get to the bottom, like, proud of what you'd achieved, like, personally? Yeah,
exactly. Like,
I don't care what happens.
I wasn't even worried about the score. I was pretty damn sure there wasn't going to be there wasn't a better run than that. But also I was just like ecstatic with what I was able to pull out of my ass.
Well, on that note, Mark, I hope you can continue to pull runs like this out of your ass. And thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to let you get back to, well, sadly not the best SoCal weather, but yeah, get back on snow soon, and we'll see you there.